All right. I'm going to get off the stage. Do your thing.
Well, I just want to put our hands together for our first storyteller, a very brave woman full of talent and rage and excitement and passion for this work and all the work she does. And so please welcome to the storytelling stage, Tina Howard. Yeah.
I never wanted to be a mother. I never wanted to be a mother until the day I found out I was pregnant with my first son. The father was a halter-top-wearing Vassar grad, an honorary lesbian, shall we say. It was an unexpected pregnancy, and I was nearly 30. I wanted to be that baby's mother. I wanted to be the best mother who had ever mothered in the history of mothering. I was going to be a perfect mother. So I've been nervous about being here tonight, and I called my friend Barry Cole, who's an amazing writer and a member of my chosen family. And she told me, you don't have to know everything you're going to say. She told me that the word essay means try. She told me that not knowing how the hell to do something had never stopped me before. And she had evidence. Now, we're not here about that tonight. I paused hearing these wonderful words of support from her, apparently a little bit too long, and she said, ugh, just open with the goat story. So here it is. When that baby that I told you about was 2 years old, we had arranged to meet some friends at the Motherfield Zoo. We lived in Chicago, and that was in the suburbs, so we had to drive. I'm from Iowa and not a savage, so we arrived 30 minutes early. We spent that 30 minutes at the petting zoo, and despite how many wonderful critters were there, the goats are the star of the show. We went immediately into the pen. It was springtime, so there was a lot of baby goats. I knelt next to my son, and the goats joined us. I learned that a group of goats is called a drove, and they came in droves. Before long, we were surrounded by baby goats. My son was equal parts terrorized and elated. Before long, I'd lost my son. And at approximately the same time, I felt this sensation. When I looked down, there was a baby goat. I looked around for help, and seeing some zookeepers, I said, hey, help! They came over and scooped my baby up, and I said, not him, me! So they got on either side of the goat, and they wedged their thumbs in, and they pried that baby goat off of me. I looked down and saw concentric circles of goat saliva and mud and breast milk and hay on this side. This side, a much smaller circle of just breast milk. I realized at the same time it was time to go meet our friends that we'd had plans with. I marched across Motherfield Zoo wearing that stain like a badge of honor. I told strangers and my friends alike how I had nursed a baby goat. I'm confident that it wasn't the picture of perfect motherhood that most people had. But why did I want to be a perfect mother? Where did that idea even come from? Allow me to share with you a picture of my parents on their wedding day. As it turns out, I was there too. They were young, They were poor and they were aspirational. Now, I'm sure that many of you know that that can come as a great expense. They often lacked funds and they lacked parenting skills, but we had an abundance of adoration. You see, when your parents are young, you're on the same team with them. And our team was tasked with the job of performing perfection. Our demanding audience was our extended family and our tight-knit community. If I had a free hand, I'd put that in air quotes. I grew up in a small town in Iowa in a neighborhood where all of the houses were identical, but for the varying shades of pastel exteriors. It was tidy. My father swept the stoop. We often lacked things, but the thing we never lacked was affection for each other. When I entered the room, their eyes warmed. They were there for me. They were present, and they never missed a single activity I participated in. We were, however, forbidden big emotions because big emotions make big behaviors. And I felt that my parents' restraint was the biggest. I felt that my parents' restraint was a violation of who I was. I did not want to sit in the church pew in a dress that matched my mother's and my mother's mother. I had rage and I had passion, and I wanted them to tell me that that was okay. I was called precocious, and I knew that that meant I was a pain in the ass. They could not tell me that that was okay, but what they could do was love me. And that love felt like a weighted blanket before that was even a thing. I knew that if we were poor in every other way, we were rich in that way. Now, as I moved through mothering, I realized that mothering was about movement, that mothering was messy, and I've made some really big messes. I could tell you about the stench of a lunchbox ignored for several days because there was water in Sabino Canyon and that big bug festival, and I really did want to cuddle cockroaches. I could tell you about losing my child at the Chicago Botanical Gardens because I had agreed that if indeed they caught that rabbit, they could keep it. I could tell you about watching my beautiful firstborn standing in the antique vanity where I'd watched my mother's mother powder her nose, exploring the word ass. Dumbass. Smart ass. You can kiss my ass, asshole. He was 4. My mother had a technique for stopping me from doing things like that, and I'll show it to you today. That meant I could never discuss the hole I discovered in the virgin birth story, or I certainly was not to mention that I thought I liked girls. Now, my father used comedy to show me that the whole thing was a complete farce, but he never once broke rank. I could tell you all those stories of the messes I've made, but today, if you'll give me just another moment, I'd rather tell you about the day that we adopted my son, Nathan. Nathan was 16 years old, and he had spent the bulk of his life in foster care. Whatever you just imagined that means, it was worse than that. I didn't know how I was going to integrate this kid into this family of mine. I didn't know if I had the skills. What I did know was that me and my drove had an abundance of adoration. God damn it, we're rich that way. Thank you.
Tina, thank you. That was awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. The goats. That made me think of when my son was little and we went to the petting zoo. We were living in Oakland at the time. And he was really afraid of the animals. And I kept wanting to push him. And we got all the celery. I think there was only 2 things you could bring. You could bring romaine lettuce and celery. That was it. And so we brought a couple stalks of celery. And I'm like, go feed the cows, go feed the goats, go feed. And he didn't want to feed anybody. So you know what he did? He started breaking off the celery and handing it to other kids. And he saw how happy they would get. And that was enough. That was enough. And I was like, oh man, he's a good kid. And I should just stop pushing him to go up to animals that scare him. Thank you, Tina, for that story.